I call Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, let me be very clear. The reason that we are here today is because this government allowed the Southern District Health Board to get to the point where they could no longer manage. Jonathan Coleman, the Minister, the previous Minister Tony Ryle and his government are responsible for this mess, the mess that has put the Southern DHB between a rock and a hard place. Their problems have been obvious for years, and we heard Annette King say that in 2009 a Crown Monitor was appointed, and the DHB has been under intensive monitoring by the National Health Board since that time. Annette King called for commissioners to be appointed, a commissioner to be appointed in April last year, and was dismissed by the Minister Jonathan Coleman. He dismissed it. Oh, and what happened a few months later? All of a sudden he realised that something had to be done quickly, and he dismissed the board and appointed a commissioner. The Southern District Health Board is underfunded. That is what is wrong here. That is what is at the root of the problem. That's why we're in this mess. The previous board couldn't fix it because it's a fundamental issue out of their control. The existing commissioners are clearly struggling. There's no long-term plan to date. There's very little transparency. It's a big issue. It's a big problem. There's a huge deficit. They're in a hole, and it's this government and this minister, Jonathan Coleman, which is responsible. And the only reason that we're supporting this bill, and I have to admit that it does gall me to do so, is because it makes Jonathan Coleman directly responsible for the fixing of our District Health Board, and because it would be a poisoned chalice to any newly elected board right now. And I am informed that there is support across the House from the other parties on this bill, and that it is for those reasons. I am a standard bearer of democracy and accountability, Mr. Speaker. I love my city, I love my DHB, I love our region. And I'm immensely proud of our teaching hospital in Dunedin and the people who work in it. And I'm proud of the services across the region. But they are so stretched and so under pressure. And however, since the commissioners took over last June, we haven't seen a lot of action. There's been a turnover of senior management, of some senior management, and there's been a major listening exercise undertaken, Mr. Speaker, a major listening exercise that has cost $250,000, and it has come up with a set of draft values, things such as our kindness fosters better care and better teamwork. We listen, hear and communicate openly and honestly with consideration for others. We bring a positive attitude and are always looking to do things better, and our success comes from nurturing and building on our strengths in the community. Well, that's all very well, but if you're not properly funded, you can't deliver the services properly, and you end up in a hole with a huge deficit, and that's where our DHB is at the moment. The DHB commissioners have been to see me recently. They've delivered the message that they have to come up with a plan where the DHB can live within its means. However, how they do that is still very vague. There are very vague statements being made. They could not tell me specifically what the deficit projection is for next year, even though there is a deficit projection on the website. I am now told that a business case for a new clinical services block won't be ready until mid-next year, despite in February the Minister saying that it would be at the end of this year. Why is it taking so long? What plans are being put in place for the board to live within its mean? What the hell is Jonathan Coleman going to do about this situation? When is there going to be an acknowledgement that our DHB is seriously underfunded? And if these commissioners can't do the job that they've been given to do because it is a poison chalice, Mr. Speaker, what will happen then? Will they be dismissed, and will we see new ones? Is Isn't the fundamental problem underfunding? Why won't the commissioners say so? Because it's the community that knows it. And look at, and a very good example of this is the situation with Compass. Last year, Mr. Speaker, the Southern DHB was given the choice, no choice, but to accept Compass as the contractor to provide food for inside our hospitals across our region and for Meals on Wheels. And look how that's turned out. Half of the people receiving Dunedin Meals on Wheels have ditched Compass. Relatives are bringing food into the hospital because the meals are so bad. Staff are expressing serious concerns about the nutritional values and about the fact that they have to serve the food, they have to care for patients who are receiving this food. This is frozen food that's being trucked in from Auckland. This is a company that paid $2 million, just $2 million in tax last year in New Zealand. Instead, it makes loans to its UK parent company, and those loans have gone up 6 times in the last 4 years to $33 million in the last year.
Back to the bill.
Mr. Speaker, it's called tax avoidance and it's amoral. But the big question is, Mr. Speaker, which relates to this bill because it's about the decisions that the DHB has been forced to make to save money. How did Compass get to be the preferred provider? Did the government do any due diligence on Compass? On Compass New Zealand's tax affairs before insisting that the DHB sign a 15-year contract to deliver hospital food. A 15-year contract. Who signs a 15-year contract, especially under these circumstances, with a community that was so opposed? But we were being told, oh no, there would be $6.5 million savings over X number of years, 15 years, I think it is. How is that going to pan out, given that most of the DHBs around the country refused to take Compass on because they could see what a problem it was? Mr. Speaker, this is a huge issue in Otago and Southland. It's an absolute disgrace that patients who are sick and vulnerable are being forced to eat slops. And yes, I will use that word because that is what is happening. 400 people lined up outside Dunedin Hospital last Friday
The member
to protest.
should come back to the bill she's given.
Mr. Speaker,
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Sit down. The member needs to tailor her debate to the bill. The member has been given a lot of latitude to cover the ground that she wanted to. She's done that, and now it is appropriate for her to move on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you can see, I feel very strongly about this matter.
That's not the point. You've got a bill to address.
Compass was taken on by the DHB. A contract was signed to save money, and this is the pressure that our DHB is being put under. The community in Otago and Southland is absolutely opposed to this contractor. Absolutely opposed, absolutely opposed, and have expressed their views to this contract, which was put in place to save money because of the pressures that our DHB is under. And shortly after that contract was signed, the DHB was dismissed because they could not manage the financial situation that they were in. 400 people stood outside our DHB and our Dunedin Hospital on Friday to protest. The DHB, the commissioners, have spent $250,000 in a listening exercise, saying that they want to go out and listen to the community. Well, 400 of them stood directly outside Dunedin Hospital last Friday telling the DHB that they did not like this contract, that they wanted Compass sacked, that they wanted to reinstate hospital food being prepared in our good hospital kitchens in Dunedin Hospital and Invercargill Hospital, and that the staff want it, the staff are concerned, the staff are being gagged from speaking out about these issues.
Order. The member is still talking about this particular aspect which she has covered. There is plenty more in the bill, and if she wants to make a contribution and not have her call terminated, she should get back to the bill.
Mr Speaker, the bottom line for this bill lies with Jonathan Coleman. He is the Minister. He is directly accountable. This bill says he is directly accountable for the fate of the Otago, of the Southern District Health Board. He is directly accountable. He's got 3 years to sort out this problem, and he could start with an acknowledgement that the Southern District Health Board is underfunded. He could start with coming to our region, talking to people, understanding what it is, how deeply concerned people are in the Southern District Health Board region, and ensuring that there is a sustainable plan in place and that the DHB will not end up being underfunded.
The member's time has expired. Jackie D.